Hey everyone, Sean Peers from Dental Peers bringing you another exciting edition of Quick Hits. I am really pleased today to be able to welcome back a guest that we had on the show before, who had some great information that she was able to share with us on the importance of budgeting. And that is my friend, Evelyn Ramsay, Canadian dental coach. Evelyn, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Sean?
Oh, we're still holding on here. We're holding on. We're doing okay. I mean, life is moving bit by bit, and we're just trying to keep up these days, right?
That's right.
We had a lot of great feedback with respect to some of the things that we talked about in terms of budgeting when we last had you on the show. So today I wanted to, still take, in a way, I guess, a little bit of a similar thing, because we're going to be talking about numbers in a way. We're going to be talking about open time and how offices are dealing with it. And it's sort of strange in this particular era, in this COVID era where people we're experiencing so many labor shortages across the mark. And I talked to friends of mine that are trying to get in and see their dentist, and they're being told they can get their dental appointment fairly soon, but their hygiene appointment is 3 or 4 months down the road. They've just such a shortage. And yet I'm still hearing complaints about idle time for hygiene teams. What's going on? How are we getting this open time when there seems to be such a shortage, and that's really having an impact on how things are working for us in the world of dentistry?
You know what, Sean? I was just recently in a practice last month, and they had exactly that same problem. And they didn't understand why. And they've got really good hygiene. They're running 4 or 5 hygiene, and the girls are all healthy. They're all there. Everything, the lights are on. Everybody's ready to go. And then there's open time in the schedule. And so we went in and took a look at that and broke it down. And what was happening was a couple things. One, the first question I always ask is, who's looking after your recalls? And so the story I usually get is no one. Because what's happening is they become very dependent on Demand Force, Lighthouse 360, WeCare Max. And those are all, like, I love all of those systems, and I've encouraged practices to put them in, and I like it. But it's like any dental software system, when you put it into a practice, somebody still has to be accountable to manage it. So what I found in this particular practice, when I went in and took a look at the reports within the WeCare management program, they weren't accurate, and they didn't match what was going on in the AbleDent system in the software. And so, and then nobody was running reports, and then they didn't trust them. So I had to start again. I went back and measured how many active patients do we have, how many people who have been in the last 2 years, and who are due but haven't been called. And when I look at their WeCare program, they're sending out text message, letter, text message, and nobody is picking up the phone and calling the patient. And you still need to, and when I worked with McKinsey Management years ago, we used to say that's dialing for success. You still have to have somebody on the phone calling your patient. And just like if I called you, Sean, and said it's time for your flu shot, you've got, your response would be, oh darn, Evelyn's got my number. To mean, like, I can't wiggle out of this, and then because you're a patient and I would know you, I'd be able to say, well, Deshawn, how does this work with your family? And so I'm able to listen to your objections and counter them. So as much as we have all of these great computerized systems, we still sometimes, for the patients that don't book online, that are not, responding, we still need to have someone pick up the phone and call them. And so what we did was we ran a list, and I assigned it to 2 different people. It was a long list, over probably 1,500 patients on that list who've not been contacted between anywhere from a year to 3 years, and then had them call the patients. And so the flip side to that is I don't have any trouble booking up those schedules. But the other part of it is that we really need to have it starts with the dentist to create value for that appointment, so that is not just a recall appointment. I don't find that the open time is in the doctor's chair, because usually people have a need to come, they've got a broken filling, they want to have it done, so they value that appointment and they'll come. But when it's in the hygiene chair, and and I walk the halls, I hear the script, and what they're saying is, oh, well, we're going to schedule you for 6 months ahead, but that's okay. If you can't make it, just call the office and we'll reappoint that appointment.
Oh,
And
let's
I'm
just
going,
invite them
oh,
to cancel. Let's invite problems into the door, right?
that's right. You've just you've just devalued the appointment. And so I like having the doctor chairside give the patient a reason to return. Jim, and not to say, oh, we need to see you in 6 months. I would say, Jim, we need to see you in June. And I need to see you in June because you can't get in and get this area cleaned out with a toothbrush. I need to have Jane go in and do that for you. And so once the patient knows why they need to return, they have a lot better success rate at keeping that appointment. And then if they document that, then the person that's calling, if I was calling that patient, I would be easily able to say, well, I think he had mentioned to you before that on the upper right, you're having trouble getting in there. So I don't want to keep that. If we have to reappoint you, let's try to get you at least at the end of June, not in July. He said he wanted to see you in June. So when the doctor tells the patient, I need to see you in June, then the patient, remembers that and they keep it. And so that was one way that we stopped and it takes from the time that I call it a bleed, open time bleed. Once you identify it and then stop it, then it takes about 3 to 4 months before you get that, effectively going, because it's not an overnight fix, but at least you've been aware of it.
Right. So like you've hit on so many different levels there. I'm sort of trying to go back and go, wow, okay, so many things that are popping into my mind in terms of aspects that you covered. And the first, of course, and I'm with you, I'm a huge fan of the technology of, things like a Recall Max. I think they provide a fantastic service. And I know like they're constantly evolving with the technology they provide to be able to improve it, to be able to make it meet the needs of the patient base better. And it's a positive product. But I think as with anything, when we get too much reliance on technology, we expect the technology to pretty much do the job for us. And it's that idea, like you said, well, gee, I've sent out the text, I've sent out email, I've done all these things. The person hasn't clicked on that little icon that says I'm confirming my appointment. Because I know, I confess, I have been bad sometimes where I forgot. And then 2 or 3 days beforehand, phone rings. Sean, it's your dental office calling. You haven't confirmed it. You've got your appointment scheduled for 2 days from now. We want to make sure that you're going to be here to look after your needs and stuff like that. So you have to be able to track these things. So you have to have a person responsible for tracking, and you have to assign that. Like, that only makes sense to me when you go through. Is there an issue that maybe some of these offices just literally don't have a person assigned to monitor this? Or
well, you know what, they just get really busy. They get really busy, and then when the openings start cancellations, those girls get so busy just filling tomorrow's schedule. The other thing I get them to do is I get them to confirm 2 days ahead in the hygiene department, because just confirming 2 days ahead, it gives them one extra day to fill that opening if there's an opening. They're not so, it's not so tight that they can't get somebody in. And then also training the girls to sometimes like I'll book, if they're due in 6 months, I'll book 6 months plus a week rather than just 6 months plus a day. Because if you need to move that patient around, if you have a little bit of wiggle room, that helps as well. But I like what I'll do is I usually have 1 or 2 hygiene schedulers assigned just to the hygiene schedule, not to do the doctor schedule. I have doctor schedules to do that. I just want to have 1 or 2 people on the hygiene schedule. And in this case, I had like 6 hygienists. So I just gave each of the hygiene schedulers 3 girls to look after. Now they can still help each other, but it just kind of chunked it down, where if it was me, I'd say, oh, I get to look after chair 1, 2, and 3. Those are my hygiene chairs. And then they become very good at knowing how to schedule that hygienist and then how to fill those open time. And then also asking patients, if I can't get you in until this date, but if I have an opening or a cancellation, would you want me to put you on a short notice list? Some offices, it's shocking. When I ask the girls, do you know how to make a short notice list? They don't know how to do it. No one's trained them,
No one said those words, a short notice what?
Yeah. So I get the software system to show them how to, make a short notice list so that if they do have an opening, just we have great people at the front desk, and because I'm strong in administration, I have the utmost empathy for those girls in the front desk. They work really hard, and nothing is more stressful to them than when they have an open time. And if I can give them the tools, the scripting, um, the ownership of, who's on first, who's on second. I even break it down to who answers the phone first. I
Right.
used to get the hygiene, because most of the volume of calls are coming in for the hygiene department. They answer the phones first, gives time for the doctor schedules to answer the phone later. So those are all, there's every practice that has open time. You have to look at your hygiene department as to, is there a broken system here? I have to look at my doctor, because I need to have them, create value for the appointment. And then I look at the administration team to find out, what's really going on, how are we scripting, who's responsible for the recalls? Do they have time to do that? Or is that something that should be pulled out to a part-time person, but give them the training? Because you just can't put anybody in on those phones. I go into practices where they put the, the introverted person on the telephone and they just want to make the phone call and get off the call. I want to have somebody on that phone who's really personable. And when they call the patient, they can say, how's your cat? How's Christopher doing? He's in university. I want personal relationships with the patient. It's a known fact that people don't cancel their appointment when they have a personal relationship with you.
And we touch a little bit with respect to that when you talk about wanting that person who's extroverted and outgoing and willing to engage with the patient when they get them on the phone. You have to assess that skill by watching them on the phone, because I've seen people that one-on-one, face-to-face, they're dynamite. Put them on the phone and there's nobody in front of them. They can't respond if they can't look into somebody's eyes. So you really, even the most extroverted person doesn't necessarily mean they're good on the phone. Now, maybe it's a training issue. Maybe you can overcome that. Sometimes though, it's just like, I just can't get that energy up on a phone call that I can in person. And so maybe we have to, assuming we have enough personnel to be able to do this, we may have to do a little bit of shuffling around in terms of responsibilities.
Yeah, it's fun. I've been in hundreds of offices in my career, and then just hearing some of the people making that confirmation call. I think, I had one girl and she took a deep breath and she just went, hi, this is Evelyn calling. I'm just confirming your appointment tomorrow morning at tomorrow afternoon at 2:00. Thanks again. Bye. Like, that's not a confirmation call.
Oh
And
my goodness.
also, a left message is not a confirmation call. That's a left message.
Exactly. That's the same as the text that nobody hits the respond icon for.
That's right. The other thing I like for the girls to say, because lots of patients will say, well, I need in, I want to, but I have to check my husband's schedule, or I have to. And so I like to hear them say, that's great, Jane. And if I don't hear back from you by Friday, I'll give you another quick call. I never want them to leave that with just the patient to call us back. I want to diary date that. I want to be able to have control of that appointment. So that's great. Check all the schedules that you need. But if I don't hear back from you by Friday, I'm calling you again.
And it creates the expectation, like if the person doesn't wind up calling you back and you have to chase them down, they can't really be all that upset about another phone call from my dental office. You just called me 2 days ago, because you can say, I know, and remember we discussed that I needed to hear back from you, and if I didn't hear back from you, I was going to call. So they kind of go, oh yeah, you're right. Oops, my bad.
So it's creating value, it's accountability, it's your scripting, it's maximizing the tools that you have. All of that makes for a successful, and it's a great problem to have. And I'll just close, Sean, with that. If you are booked so far ahead, then maybe you need to look at your schedule, because maybe working Monday to Friday, maybe you can't see all your patients during that period of time. So maybe you need to open up more and a couple of evenings to see some recalls, or maybe you open up Friday. But it depends on the doctor and what they want to do. In the case last week, we ended up hiring another hygienist, and you can get good hygienists. You just have to reward them and give them a great office to work in and pay them well. And sometimes, you can recruit a hygienist to your practice with being, tactfully recruiting a qualified person that.
Yeah, we don't want to get into poaching by any means, we
No, I
want to
don't want to
keep
get into
things
that, but you
yeah.
do, like, the schools are putting out people out lots of people. And so sometimes it's just a matter of reaching them and then making it attractive for them to come to your office. And like, I've got a lot of hygiene. I've had hygiene who wanted to leave my practices, and then we got them to stay because we added a bonus system that made it worthwhile for them to stay. So it's having a pulse on what's going on and what the needs are within your practice is so important. And it really helps to reduce that open time.
And these days, as we've discussed, this idea that you really have to be flexible because of how the labor market has changed so dramatically over the last couple of years as a result of the pandemic. You do have to be receptive to it, but it's not just about what sort of compensation I put out. It's overall, what's the package as being a good employer. And that's, part of that is making sure that we have a team that is satisfied, that they feel, we get to do a good job. We really get to make a difference in the patients' lives. I'm not sitting here with a ton of patients canceling and I'm scrambling. I've got patients that are dedicated, and they're dedicated in part because we do a good job. We've got the right scripts. I mean, you talked about the short notice scripts and stuff like that, but we don't necessarily want to say short notice to the patient. We don't want to create this idea that, oh, I can get in a snap. I can cancel this and get in no time. The idea is to communicate to them in a way that sort of says, oh, we're super busy, but if we can squeeze you in, we'll try. No promises. Do you really want to cancel that appointment?
I don't call it to my patient short notice list. I'll call it, that's part of the scripting. I'll say, I can put you on my special list, on my VIP list. So if we get a cancellation, I can look at trying to get you in. Would that work for you, Mrs. Smith? And so the patient leaves feeling, okay, they can't see me for 6 months, but she knows who I am. She knows what I need. And she's listened to me. It's been a two-way conversation, and I'm on her radar. And if she gets an opening, she'll call me. And so then when I call her, especially if I'm calling a day in advance, I'm not calling that day of, right? Yeah. It gives the patient, yeah, I can come in tomorrow at 2:00. Thanks again, Evelyn. I really appreciate you calling me, and going, that's great. So it's building patient relationships. The other thing too, is I always feel it's sad when the doctor looks at their report and they think they've got 6,000 patients. And in reality, they have 4,000 patients, and so any computer, garbage in, garbage out. So, how much time is your staff spending on calling patients that have moved away or aren't even in the same province, but nobody's cleaned up the computer system. So it's just, when I get into those, I call them projects A and B. I just make them into projects. And sometimes I'll ask the staff, is there anybody who wants to work on this project? Because sometimes you have somebody on your team already that knows the patients, that wants a little extra money, especially before Christmas. And they'll come in, on a Saturday or on a Friday and make those calls for you, and you can get your system cleaned up. So.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be up and current on all aspects in terms of what's going on out there, but what's going on inside my office as well, and know who are my active patients and who's just a name on a file, and we don't have a face or a body to connect with it in any real sense of the word. So I like all that. I like streamlining things so that we're focusing our attention on what really matters, and getting that system in where we're creating value. That's again about scripting, right? And you got to practice these scripts, how you communicate with people to create value, how you communicate with them to let them know that time is a scarcity in your practice, so that they value the time that they have scheduled with their appointments. And it's not just something where, yeah, we'll book your next appointment in 6 months. See ya.
Or this one, everything looks good.
Yeah.
See you, and then they leave. And then the poor, and the other thing too is, like, in that practice I recently was in, is I got the hygienist to book the next appointment in 6 months time, or 9 months time, or 3 months time. And the other thing is, here's a tip too, because if you're doing a lot of perio in your practice and you're booking do you want to see the patient every 3 months or every 4 months, then book that out for a year. like when you got them there, schedule it ahead so that you can get them in, so that you're not going through, oh, you do in 3 months, but we have no openings for 6 months, because
Yeah.
then we haven't really serviced that patient very well. So I like having the hygiene schedule, the next appointment chair side, and then creating value. And I teach I call it the clinical dance, but where I really like having the doctor, when they enter the room, addressing the hygienist and then the patient. And then I want the hygienist to repeat the story that they've just heard from the patient to the doctor. So the patient hears, the patient told their story to the hygienist repeated it to the doctor. The patient feels they understand, they heard me, they understand. And then as he's sitting down, he's talking, and he's beginning, the x-rays are up on the screen, the intraoral camera photos are up on the screen, everything's ready to go for the doctor. So I call that prompting your doctor.
Communication, let me get that word out properly. Communication skills.
That's right.
Incredibly valuable in terms of how we communicate as a team, as well as how we are seen to communicate by the patients, and then bring that to the patients as well. Because it's interesting. It's an interesting dichotomy that at a time when offices are struggling with a shortage of labor, they could still wind up with last minute open time. You look at their scheduler in a particular day, and it might seem they're booked 3 or 4 months out because of the shortages. But all of a sudden, those couple of days before, if the value hasn't been created, if the systems aren't being followed, they still get no-shows or last minute cancellations and stuff like that. So these are great tips. Oh, go ahead.
And then I see the hygiene in the kitchen checking their cell phone for messages because they've got all this open time, and so they don't know how to fill their time because, they've just got like an hour open now. Like now what do I do? So there's a whole process to, when you do have open time, how you can, even though you're the hygienist, how you can help book yourself up as well. And then why that's important to you and how that can benefit you as, and so, because I find people really good. They want to work and they want to be busy. They just need to have the systems in place to support that.
Lots of great tips, and I know we're just kind of scratching the surface on some of them. If people wanted to dig a little bit deeper with you, what's the best way for them to be able to reach out and get in touch with you?
They can text me on 902-830-4699, and I'm happy to answer a text and set up a time. They can just text me with a question, I'll text them back. But the time zones is always hard to, if they call, I don't always, it depends where I am. So a text is great. Or they can email me on canadiandentalcoach@gmail.com. And what I like to do is set up a phone call time with them or a Zoom call with them if they're comfortable with Zoom. And we can talk about what's going on in their practice. And maybe I can give them some hints of, my first hour with any new client is complimentary anyway. So and I love to talk to dentists about their open time.
Well, we hopefully can talk to them about it in a way that we can reduce it. Even in this crazy world, we want to make sure that that people really truly value those appointments. So Evelyn, thanks for some of that information that you've shared with us to be able to take us forward in terms of trying to make sure that we're getting full value, and the time that we schedule, we got bums in the chairs.
That's right. Everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us on another edition of Quick Hits. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I look forward to bringing some more exciting and informative knowledge to share with you at the next session. Look forward to seeing you then. Take care, everyone.